Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Whether this is your first time with us, or you've joined for a webinar, or you're a client, or you're a friend, we're so excited that you're here for today's deep dive. My name's Andrew Cotlar, and I'm based here in beautiful Kansas City, Missouri, the home of Kansas City barbecue and jazz, and Taylor Swift is the people's princess here, as I always like to remind everyone. But I know many of you are tuning in from the US. We have friends in Canada joining today, the UK, and even further abroad. So it's great to have such a global presence here with us today. I feel the love. So I'm excited to get started. Let's do it. If this is your first webinar with us, at TRG, we work across performing arts genres, theaters, orchestras, presenters, whatever you got, with leaders like you to grow audiences and revenue for your organization. Increasingly, we've become really curious about the connection between programming and patronage, not just what's on stage, but who shows up, how often they come, and why they come. And we always lead with data. And sometimes that makes us a little disruptive. I've been called worse. That's all right, because the data doesn't always confirm the stories we're telling ourselves. Our goal is to help you create loyalty with your patrons. That's it. Everything we do is centered around securing recurring revenue, building the relationships that sustain your organization long term. So for TRG, being loyalty focused means thinking of your customers, your patrons, audiences, donors, whatever you call them, not in transactional terms, but as your relationships. Our work helps organizational leaders like you nurture and grow those thoughtful relationships intentionally and strategically, turning your first time buyers into repeat attendees, and repeat attendees into loyalists like subscribers, members, donors. Again, whatever your loyalty model, your business model is, we can apply it. And it's all about increasing recency and frequency and deepening engagement over time. Because the end goal of loyalty is essential to the work you do. It's creating repeatable, sustainable, recurring revenues, the kind that allows the creative and important work on your stages to thrive and in your communities. So, focusing on the reason we're all here today, let me start by asking you this question. Let's be honest. Are you training your audiences to wait? I saw one answer in the chat that might make me think yes. So think about it. We actually teach our patrons how to behave, and they remember. A last minute discount for the current show will tell them to wait until last minute for the next show. It's a trap that we all set for ourselves, whether it's holding off for last minute discounts or holding out for a special offer. What we're often doing is unintentionally training them to wait before discounting. Discounting is often our instinctive reaction when sales are slow, right? We talked about that. And audiences are really smart. They pay attention. Don't get me wrong, there is a time and a place for discounting tickets, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. But last minute broadcast discounting can come off as desperate, and it actually erodes your future revenue opportunities. Today, we're going to look at how we can break that cycle by intentionally managing demand in a way that brings urgency, strengthens perception of success, and ultimately drives sustainable revenue without relying on the traditional fix of a flash sale or last minute desperate deep discounting. So we all know when sales are soft, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking it must be about price. We've all had those conversations with our teams. Let's challenge that for a moment. Imagine that every ticket to every one of your shows was completely free. Would you still have a full house every night? I know we've all been in that situation that the show isn't selling. We can't even give away these tickets, right? So price resistance is real. But the thing is, if you take a look at your ongoing sales data and you still see that inventory at your lowest price point, the cheapest tickets in the house, and I have conversations with leaders every day like you, If that lowest price inventory is still available, your problem probably is not price, it's demand. Demand, demand, demand. We do need revenue, that's the reality. And every seat in your house is an asset. It should be working for both revenue and relationship. So we love to ask the question, what's a seat worth? It's a trick question. It's worth what you can get for it. No more and no less. If demand is strong, we should capture that value. If it's soft, the issue usually isn't price, especially, like I said, if your lowest price seats are still available. So the core idea today is simple. Demand informs price, not the other way around. Now, when thinking about demand, there are a lot of potential factors like the ones you see on the screen. Demand can be a big challenge right now. Unstable political and economic realities, cost of living challenges, competition for our patrons' attention and how they spend their time. And by the way, common misconception in our industry, we're not competing with each other for patrons. We're competing with the couch and Netflix. So there are a bunch of factors that dictate demand. But when the focus is solely on price, especially when demand is weak, the reaction we commonly see is very often that deep discounting, that fire sale mentality, which can come off, like I said, as desperate. And it actually erodes buying behavior, not only for your organization, but the entire performing arts industry. That's why it's important for us to offer this conversation, this webinar today. TRG works to educate the industry so that we can work together to build audiences and grow our organizations together. It's that rising tide lifts all ships mentality. Discounting feels like an immediate solution, but when we drop prices, we might get a short-term boost in sales. What's really happening behind the scenes is when we rely on broadcasting deep discounts, we inadvertently are training our patrons to wait for deals, which means they come to expect discounted prices every time, every show, every concert. We're actually lowering the perceived value of our offering because we're saying to them that the original price wasn't worth it. We're reducing long-term revenue potential as we condition our audience to expect less value for more. So all of this ultimately leads to the fact that we are undermining our pricing power over time. Again, when you offer a last minute discount, you might see a short-term bump in sales, but over time, this sets us up for long-term damage. It weakens our ability to command full price, and we lose the opportunity for sustained growth. And with the I word, inflation, causing production and concert costs to skyrocket, we all know that we need to bring in as much revenue as possible at this moment. Whoa, record scratch moment. You're asking yourself, so should we never use discounting as a tool to sell tickets? Of course. The short answer is no. You can and maybe should use discounting when it fits into your sales campaign. But think about how you use discounting strategically and in the context of relationship building, not reactively. Discounts can be used to build relationships, for instance, by welcoming back first timers, rewarding loyalty, driving specific desired behaviors. Avoid discounts that are broadcast widely and last minute, discounts that are repeated and predictable, and ones that you're using to fix slow sales. Remember, it's rare that price is your issue. We see that in the data, unless you're selling all of your lowest price inventory first. So it's one of the strategies we'll discuss today. Price is just a tool. Demand can be your strategy. Now that we've talked about the risks of last minute discounting, let's talk about demand. In the arts, we often treat demand like the weather, something that just happens to us. But demand isn't accidental, and it doesn't have to be. It can be strategically planned and managed. The real power of demand happens early in the sales cycle, early. When we build momentum early, we gain control over pricing, sales pacing, and customer behavior. This isn't just about filling seats. It's about shaping buying habits for your patrons that supports that long-term revenue and your organizational sustainability. So this is a conversation, not just for the marketing team, not just for the ticketing team. This is a conversation that you should be having with all levels of your organizational leadership. So that's all the conceptual stuff. Let's actually put a demand management plan into action. First, we're going to start by digging into your goals of demand management. When we think about managing demand strategically, it's more than just filling seats. It's about making intentional choices that help us achieve these three key things. Number one, we have to actively manage perception of success. Perception is everything. It's show business, right? What really matters is how people feel when they walk into your venue. Do they feel like they're part of something special? Like this is where everyone wants to be tonight? When the vibe is right, even a small crowd can feel electric, like you got a hot ticket to something. Every performance, regardless of the size of your house, can feel full of energy and value. That feeling is what people remember. It's what they take with them. Same for the performers on stage. Perception of success can go both ways, the audience and your performers. Number two, as the house fills, yield should rise with it. By yield, I mean the average revenue earned per available seat. Not just whether we sold it, but how much value we actually captured. When demand builds and seats start disappearing, that's our moment. We can't just celebrate attendance. We have the opportunity to actually optimize revenue. And as inventory tightens, price can fluctuate. The goal isn't just a full room, it's higher revenue per seat as demand increases. That's just basic supply and demand. And lastly, this is an opportunity to honor and cultivate loyalty. Our most loyal patrons are the backbone of our revenue. When we focus on demand management, we also need to honor existing relationships. Loyalists should feel valued with early access, exclusive offers, and personalized experiences that reinforce their connection to our organization and our mission. And you can do that by investing in demand management. So let's talk about how we apply this in practice and what we can actually do to achieve those goals. First, we're going to look at scale plans. This is about your seat map and how you price it. This is where I really personally nerd out, and I invite you to nerd out with me. I would ask, are your price zones placed intentionally? Are they helping the room feel full and in demand? A smart scale of house puts the right prices in the right places so perception, loyalty, and revenue all work together. When that's done well, your per caps, that average paid ticket price, grows, meaning you're bringing in more revenue per customer throughout the sales cycle. Not just more seats sold, but more revenue captured per seat. Okay. Then we build a new scale of house and layer in inventory management, which likely means not putting the entire venue on sale at once. And that's if you have a 2,000 seat venue or you have a 100 seat venue. It applies across the board. There's nothing worse than logging onto a website for a show you're excited to see and seeing hundreds of little colorful dots available to purchase. What does that make you do? Well, for me, when I see all those little colorful dots, I wait, right? Instead, we can create intentional scarcity. We can control what's available and influence the fill pattern and make the room feel in demand from the start of the sales cycle. That lets you manage both the audience experience and pricing proactively, not reactively. If the house feels full, the audience and performers will just have a better experience. So we've got your scale plan, your inventory management, and last, yes, we'll talk about dynamic pricing too. We often describe this as the icing on the cake, the final step that will help maximize revenue. More on that in a bit. And through all of this work, we're going to use data to inform these conversations around demand and pricing. This can be emotional work. The seats, the prices, we all have a bias about these things, but we're going to look to the data to help direct us. And we'll count on you to know what we can't see in the data, to be the experts about your own venue. There are nuances in each venue, like balconies, what are the best seats, where there are obstructed views, all of that. You're the expert there, but we're going to use data and that expertise to create a maximum effect on revenue. All right, so let's start with scale of house. Remember, in most cases, we're not required to sell the entire venue at once. So scale of house means we open and price sections intentionally based on demand, essentially turning one big room into a series of smaller rooms as sales grow. Because perception matters, the house should always feel vibrant and in demand. And at the same time, we're protecting revenue by controlling inventory and price. This is where perception and yield can work together. So here's an example of what we would call a traditional scale plan with at least 8 price tiers. It's a large venue, but again, the concepts here you can apply to any size venue. You can apply this to a 100-seat theater, I promise. So in this hall, the highest prices are up front closest to the stage, and the lowest prices, or the cheap seats, so to speak, are at the very top in the back of the hall. The price levels go across the venue left to right. The scale plan will naturally scatter the audience through the entire hall and keep them in groups based on the price they're willing to pay for their tickets. This applies, by the way, to single tickets, subscribers, all of the above. Think about what this kind of scale plan is saying to your audiences. We see school groups relegated to the back corners of the house. Is that a good first experience to offer young people who may be attending for the first time? We'll talk about maintaining accessible pricing in a bit, but think about what your scale plan now says about access and what your organization values. Here's the result of that traditionally scaled map. So TRG has this proprietary heat map tool, which we use to track fill patterns. The darker the color, the more that seat was occupied during the study period. The white seats are unsold. And by the way, you can look at this by production, season, whatever you want. Look at all these empty seats, especially in these highly visible areas down front. Someone seated in the back of the orchestra or the balcony will see all those empty seats and potentially ask themselves if they made the right choice by showing up tonight. There's not a perception of success here. The center orchestra and the aisles are in demand. In fact, we have heat in every price level, but you can clearly see where people are sitting on the price breaks. And that low priced inventory located in the top tier is not helping with the perception of success. It's clear we need a range of prices because people are buying them, but they've all been purchased in this low demand scenario. And we do need as many as were on sale and are in the most optimized places in the house. Based on the sales data and heat maps, TRG developed this new scale plan. So price options were simplified down to 5 price points. Lower prices were offered in hard to fill areas, and remaining price zones were drawn by demand whatever we saw in the data. So the center orchestra and aisles are the highest price, and the price decreases horizontally to fill each section. And top sections are actually the highest prices, because if we have enough demand to fill that level, we want those to sell at the highest prices. Here are the results. With this improved plan, the venue filled front to back, side to side. So a person sitting in the last row sees only filled seats in front of them. Look how great the house looks. And imagine now giving your season ticket holders or members pre-sale opportunities so they can get the best seats at the best prices. There's also a second impact to this, and that's all about revenue potential. This is a simplified diagram to illustrate what we often see with traditional scale of house plans and pricing strategies. When a performance goes on sale, you have an average paid ticket price or per cap. As demand increases, that per cap goes up. However, by the end of the show or end of the run, the per cap goes down because it's lower priced inventory that's left to sell or last minute discounts that are being applied. So what we want to see, this is what an ideal scale inventory management can accomplish. When we go on sale with all price levels available, using low price to satisfy those who are price sensitive and to fill highly visible areas, as demand increases, the inventory that is released is at the higher price levels. So by the end of the show or the run, per caps are naturally higher. So take a look at your average paid ticket price through a sales cycle. I wonder how your sales curves look. If it looks like this, then great. If not, you might want to take a look at your scale plan and whether it's working to maximize revenue or not. So that's scale plan. Let's look at inventory management. One of the most powerful ways to manage demand, and let me tell you, we can learn a lot from other industries like airlines, concerts, all of those, on how they use inventory management to help potential customers make decisions. The key here is control. Remember, in most cases, we don't need to release every seat to the public all at once. Instead, we can carefully manage who has access, when, and at what price. This allows us to guide the flow of ticket sales and create a sense of scarcity and urgency, even when we haven't reached full capacity yet. It's not about limiting access in a way that hurts our sales. It's about making sure that every ticket sold feels valuable and that our customers see the value in booking early. And the end result, we build anticipation, we drive sales, and we strengthen the perception of success. Here is what our inventory management would look like to achieve that on our example venue. Notice that all prices are available from the on sale, right? Based on data analysis, we've built this so that there is enough inventory at each price point to cover initial sales in a lowest demand situation, meaning in past productions, these are all of the seats that were sold at the lowest selling performances. This is release one. It brings in more seats at all price points across the venue. In release two, you can see the natural progression as we release more with growing demand. And then in release three, the lowest priced inventory has been sold out. So from this point, we would continue to release back. And because we're only doing so in highest demand, we've scaled these seats at top price points to ensure we're maximizing our revenue in demand. And all this without any dynamic pricing layered on yet. Right now, even without changing your scale plan, you could help improve perception of success by reducing the number of seats available to sell and ensuring the most visible parts of our house are filling first. It can make a low demand performance look and feel better for both the audience and your performers. But you want to be mindful, you still have a choice of price available. So that might mean moving some price points around. Data can be your friend here. By the way, this isn't just about math. It's about designing a demand system that works for all audiences. Yes, we have revenue goals. We're nonprofits, but we still have to make payroll, cover production costs. That doesn't mean access is secondary. It means we have to be intentional. Price is only one barrier. There are other barriers that make people opt out. So a smart demand strategy creates room for everyone. In almost every new scale of house, we actually introduce more accessible pricing, that lowest price points, but we do it intentionally, not reactively. Here's what the data tells us actually. New audiences often pay more per ticket than we assume they do. So let's stop assuming access always means cheapest ticket. It means thoughtful design of your scale of house. Okay, after your scale plan and inventory management, then you can finally start to think about dynamic pricing. We think about that, like I said, as the icing of the cake, dynamic pricing, icing on the cake. You can only really maximize it once the foundation is in place, the scale of house, the inventory management, a clear demand strategy. That's the cake. Dynamic pricing doesn't create demand, it responds to it. So once demand shows up, dynamic pricing lets us refine revenue, adjusting prices up or down based on actual behavior in the market. It's not the strategy, it's an enhancer. If we layer smartly, incremental price bumps on top of an optimized scale and disciplined inventory management, revenue per cap can move up in a really meaningful way. And when demand starts to show up, we don't need to just guess. We can watch the data. We should monitor pace, your booking curves, and marketing inputs to understand whether demand is accelerating and whether price can move with it. Even in softer sales, some events are still in high demand. When the perceived value of the event exceeds the price on the map, that's when dynamic pricing has a real role to play here. So if you don't currently have dynamic pricing automation tools, that's okay. You can still test incremental increases, $2, $3, $5 at a time, and observe what happens to pace and let the data tell you what you should be doing. Dynamic pricing is the icing on the cake, not just the cake itself. So depending on your role, we don't always control what's on our stages or what appeals to audiences, but we can react to demand and know that our strategy is working to build both revenue and relationships. It's a cycle. You set a price, the audience reacts, and you continue to test and refine. The point of dynamic pricing is to match pricing with demand and value. Data isn't going to be your friend to make your decisions. It is. Data is going to be your friend to make your decisions. Dynamic pricing does not mean dispensing with entry level pricing either. It means having inventory at all pricing levels and raising or lowering based on demand. And you'll know there's technology that can really help with the how of dynamic pricing. Our clients use software like Dynamo pricing to effectively and confidently implement dynamic pricing. And these folks are seeing substantial impacts on their revenue as a result. So, quick tactical things to wrap it up. When you have demand, we want you to invest in blockbusters and sell those puppies out. Leverage demand to maximize your revenue and ensure loyalty is honored and rewarded. When you don't have demand, make sure that all customers have good access. You can use that as an opportunity to leverage for promotions and trials, upgrades, and always maximize the perception of success by monitoring the fill pattern. Those are your scale plans. So if you take nothing else away today, this is it. TRG's approach to demand-based pricing isn't about one magic lever. It's a whole system. It starts with your scale plan, putting the right prices in the right place so perception and revenue work together. Then inventory management, controlling what's available and when. So we create intentional scarcity and influence fill pattern. And finally, dynamic pricing, the icing on the cake. Once demand shows up, we respond to it and optimize revenue in real time. Scale, inventory, dynamic. When those three pieces work together, demand informs price and the revenue follows. If you have questions, throw them in the chat, throw them in the Q&A, but I would love to continue this conversation. That's all we have for you today. It's one thing to talk about demand management in theory. It's another to apply it to your hall, your scale of house, your inventory and programming. So we have pricing surgeries available for you. That's a one-on-one 30-minute conversation where we can talk about an upcoming sale you have, your scale of house plan, whatever you want to use that 30 minutes for. It's a complimentary session, and we have just a few available throughout March. So scan this QR code on your screen and book a call with myself or one of my colleagues. Before you throw out another last minute promo code to try to fill your house, let's look at your demand management system and how we can optimize it to bring in more audiences, more bums in seats, as they say, and more revenue to sustain your organization. So I'll keep this on the screen for a few minutes, but thank you so much for joining for today's webinar. And we are going to look forward to continuing this conversation, and we'll see you at another deep dive very soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for joining.